Hello everyone and welcome to another video. This is the second part of how to build an aquarium, and as you can see, here are the three bigger pieces of my tank, and in my previous video I showed you these pieces. So we are going to take one of these pieces and make that our base. So I am putting the base on top of a bench, and on this bench we will build our tank. So but before we do that, we need to clean the glass. So here I am using alcohol. You can also use paint thinner, and I am using a kitchen cloth. You can use any other cloth that you want. Make sure that it is not abrasive in nature, although glass doesn't scratch that easy. So the reason we are using alcohol is to dissolve away and wipe off any grease or oil from the glass that may prevent the silicone from giving us a very strong bond between the glass panels. So you don't have to clean in the middle, but make sure that you get all the edges as well as all the corners, because that's where we will be putting the silicone mostly. So here I am cutting small strips of painter's tape. Previously I was planning to use the painter's tape as a guide for my silicone, but unfortunately the tape wasn't working properly, because it's a very old tape that had laying around in my room for a very long time, and it wasn't coming off very easily from the roll of the tape. So I use these couple of strips, and the way I am using these is basically I am putting them under the base, and once I attach the back panel of my tank, I will use this tape to join the back panel with the base, basically to hold them together, so that the glass this glass that I am putting, it will not move left or right or back and forth. So this is another panel. This is also equal to the size of our base, and the reason I am putting here is to apply silicone, and on this panel we will apply silicone on the left hand side. We will also apply silicone on the left hand side of our base and the longer side of our base. So here is the silicone, and I am going to use a box cutter to cut the opening of the silicone. Make sure you don't cut too far, because if you cut too far you will find it difficult for the nozzle to be attached. So let us apply the nozzle, and if you get a good seal with the nozzle, even if you use half of the silicone, the tight nozzle will prevent silicone from drying up quickly. So you will get at least 3-4 days extra if you close the tip properly. Here is my silicone gun. I told you in my previous video that I bought this for about 140 rupees, and here's the plunger. So making sure the plunger is all the way back. Put your silicone gun inside your gun, and then move the plunger in the upright position, so that the it engages the ratchet function or the mechanism inside the silicone gun. Now give a couple of squeezes to your silicone tube, and once you see a little bit of silicone coming out, you can stop there. Now let us apply silicone to our base. So here I am applying silicone onto the longer side of my base, and when we are applying silicone, what we are looking for is basically we want a continuous bead. In this case I am failing a lot, because it is a long panel and the space that I have is very small, very less. You can see I am barely able to stand behind the bench, because there is not much space there, and also I am not very strong. If you are a strong person, you will find it much more easier, because squeezing and moving at the same time is kind of difficult. Now I am applying silicone on the left side of the base. So we have applied silicone on the longer side and the left side of the base, and now I am applying silicone on the left side of our back panel, which we just put on top of our base. So the silicone is applied on the back panel, and I have lifted the back panel with the help of my friend, and I am aligning one side of the panel first, making sure that everything is aligned. So it helps a lot when you align one corner or one edge of the panel first, and then put the other end on top of the base. So making sure that the panel is at a right angle, that is 90 degree. You can do any adjustment if you want, and once the panel is aligned you can smooth it out. Now on the top left corner you can see that I am attaching the left hand side of the aquarium. You can see that the camera angle is not very good because there is not much space in my room, and we were running out of time because once you apply the silicone it starts curing, and I did not want to risk the silicone getting cured before I attach the panel, so I couldn't change the camera angle. And now you can see on the top left corner that I am smoothing out the silicone. Once you see that the panel is aligned properly and you don't have to move it, you can smooth the silicone out, because if you don't, once the silicone dry out, it will give you will be left with a lot of silicone blobs, which will be harder for you to clean at the end. You can also cut them off using a blade, but when cutting with a blade you risk a chance of breaking the seal or leaking your aquarium. So it's best to smooth out everything when you are building the tank. Now I have put the tape together. I'm also using clear tape, some cello tape to keep the panels together because the painter's tape wasn't coming off of the roll. So you can also use any other kind of tape. Making sure looking from the top and making sure that all the angles are correct and the panels are not bowing in one direction, but you don't have to be too careful at this point because once you attach all the sides, the tank will itself square itself out. So now applying silicone on the right top of the base. Again making sure we get a continuous bead of silicone. The reason we want a continuous bead of silicone is because if the silicone breaks in the middle, there is chances of creating bubbles, but a continuous bead of silicone creates less bubbles, and which makes our tank really very strong. There we go. And now let's attach the right panel of our tank. Here you will see me do a little bit of mistake. Now I put the panel correctly, but when I lift the panel for putting that on top of the glass, I flipped it accidentally and I attached it in a wrong orientation. As you can see, this is wrong and I realized my mistake, so I quickly rotated the panel, and then now I am putting the panel properly. At this point I had option whether to start all over again to wipe off the silicone on the glass, but wiping the silicone, not cured silicone, is very difficult. So I went with the build and hoping that it will not leak and I will rectify my mistake when I am sealing the tank from inside. So without stopping or cleaning the silicone, I just went with the build, even though I know that I attached the panel wrongly, but in my second attempt, as you can see, I managed to correct it out, hoping that it will work at the end. So when building a bigger tank, make sure you know your orientation, make sure what glass panels goes where, because if you don't, you can easily mess things up. But you don't have to worry about a lot because accidents happen. You always make mistakes and never get disheartened even if you make a mistake. We can always try again. So now applying silicone on the right edge of the right panel and as well as the left edge of the left panel, and only one panel is left to be attached, which is the front panel. I have already applied silicone on top of the base in front, to which our front panel will rest. Again I am finding it difficult to hold the panel alone, so I am asking help from my friend. Now my friend is holding the panel and I am moving the panel on the right side, aligning the panel from right side first, and once the panel on the right side is aligned, I will put the panel down, and sequentially we will put the left side of the panel down. So by aligning one side first, it makes the job easier because you don't have to slide the panel again and again. Okay, I am pressing a little bit onto the glass, making sure that it is properly attached to the left side panel, moving my finger to making things smooth, so that at the end we don't have to clean up a lot. Using some clear tape to keep the panels together. Now I have attached, after this I will attach a white colored thread around the tank, just to make sure that it stays tight and it holds its position. Okay, now the crucial part is has arrived, that will decide whether our aquarium will work, hold water or not. Now, what we did previously was basically build our tank, that was basically build the skeleton of our tank. This part is more important, especially for bigger aquariums such as this one. So, when we joined the glass panels together, that was just the skeleton of our tank that will hold the weight, that will give our tank the structure. What we are doing now is basically making our aquarium waterproof, and this bead of silicone is what will hold water. So, what we are doing here is basically I am applying silicone on every joint where two panels of glass meet. So, you have to apply a bead of silicone on every seam, and once you will smooth this out with your finger, this is what that will hold the water in your tank. So, good seal from inside can make a difference in leaking aquarium or a successful aquarium. Also, using a good quality silicone also helps, because if you are using a cheap quality silicone, it may not give you good result as we got in this video. But if you are using a good quality silicone, the good quality silicone is very much forgiving. Even if you make a lot of mistakes, the tank will still work out. And now I am using my finger, lightly pressing onto the seam. So, what I am trying to do here is basically, if there were any rough edges or any gaps between the glass, I am trying to fill those gaps with my running finger. I have a cloth in my hand to which I am wiping my finger. So, every time you wipe, make sure you are using a clean finger. So, running my finger smoothly into the corner, wiping excess silicone onto a cloth that I have in my hand, and make sure to do this with all the corners. This will make your tank much more sturdier, much more waterproof, and your tank will have less chances of leaking. And this is the point where we can rectify our mistakes. So, as you have just seen, I made a mistake joining one panel. So, here I made sure that I apply silicone properly in that corner, so that the tank does not leak. And you can also see the white color thread with which I have tied up the tank, just to make sure that it stays in place for a couple of minutes or couple of hours, so that the glass panel does not slide, because I am not sure whether the ground that the tank is sitting on is flat or not. So, after 3 days I have filled this with water, and it has been actually 5 days. So, after 3 days of curing, I filled the tank with water, and this is after 5 days. You can see the water level. The tank did not leak, it is working so far. I put the tank on top of a thermocol sheet. I put some light just to show you guys how it will look under the lighting. So, let me just turn it on, and this is the tank looks after lighting up. I am using a USB light here, which runs on a 5-volt adapter. There is my desk lamp. The tank looks really good. The glass I am using is 8 millimeter, and you can also see that so far I have not attached any bracing on the tank, but I will attach some triangular bracing, corner bracing, because I want to do some experiments in this tank. I do not want the tank to break on me after that. So, there we go. This was my video. I hope you found this video helpful and interesting, and this is the tank build. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.